We commonly imagine that what is called evil is something that positively exists. This certainly seems to contradict Ibn Arabi's view of God's all-encompassing mercy. If God's mercy is in itself good, why do we think some things it encompasses as evil? Or simply, why would God, who is the source of goodness, manifest something that looks bad or evil? As we have discussed, God's ontological mercy is the bestowal of existence qua existence upon every single thing. This ontological action is completely unrelated to moral judgments. The actual appearance of what we call good or evil only exists in the presence of the mercy of application. One of Ibn Arabi's main theses is that the mercy of gratuitous gift is beyond good and evil because it operates on the plane of existence qua existence, or wujud qua wujud. God's self-manifestation or Itacha really doesn't work based on moral standards, or to put it more specifically, it operates on behalf of al-rahman, not on behalf of al-rahim. So at this level, there is absolutely no dichotomy between good and bad. Verily God is the straight path, the path is there, exposed to sight everywhere. Its reality is inherent in great things and small, in those who are ignorant of the truth as well as in those who knows it well. This is why it is said that His mercy includes everything, whether it be vile and contemptible or grand and stately. Thus it is said in the Cowan, there is not even one single animal on earth but that He seizes its forelock. Verily my Lord is on the straight path. It is clear then that everybody walking on the earth is on the straight path of the Lord. From this point of view, nobody is of those upon whom is God's wrath, nor of those who go astray. Both wrath and going astray come into being only secondarily. Everything goes ultimately back to the mercy which is universal and which precedes the appearance of all secondary distinctions. Therefore, if we proclaim that everything, its qua being, is primarily neither good nor evil, it is a correct statement. Since anything is direct manifestation of Al-Haq's ontological mercy, which is essentially good, everything in this sense must be considered good in the essential nature of its existence. The problem of good and evil only arises when humans, by their subjective and relative point of view which meet by common sense and their social context, give their judgment. A person in the secondary distinction begins to like and dislike something. He likes and pursues what he thinks good and hates and avoids what he thinks evil or bad. For Ibn Arabi, it is this relative human point of view that gives rise to good and evil, whereas something at the ontological level has no such distinction. Ibn Arabi explains it in detail as follows. God made their odors good, sweet-smelling, because speech derives from breath, which is the essence of the odor. Thus, breath proceeds from the mouth as good or bad, sweet or disgusting, according to the way it is expressed in speech. With respect to its being originally divine, breath is all sweet-smelling and good. However, with respect to praise and condemnation, it is good and evil. On the badness of garlic, Muhammad said, "It is a bush whose odor I detest." And he didn't say, "I detest it," because one doesn't detest the substance of a thing, but rather that which stems from it. Abhorrence of odors is based on custom, natural antipathy, an aim to be achieved, law, and lack of the perfection of the human body which one seeks. There are no other causes of disgust but those we have mentioned. Now, since the matter is divided into evil and good, as we have said, God caused Muhammad to love good, not evil. He described the angels as those who suffer bad odors because rottenness resides in the elemental structure of humans, for the human is created of dried clay formed from dark mud. That is, his odors always change. Thus, the angels are disgusted by humans because of their nature. Similarly, the dung beetle is harmed by the odor of the rose, whereas for us its smell is good. For the dung beetle, it is not so. Whoever possesses such a temperament, characterized metaphorically by bad odor in essence and form, when he hears the truth, it hurts him. However, he rejoices in falsehood, as God said, "Those who believe in falsehood and disbelieve in God." He described them through loss and said, "Those are losers, those who lost their souls. For whoever doesn't perceive the difference between good and evil has no perception." God made His messenger love only the good in everything, and everything is good. Can one imagine or not that there exists in the word a temperament of an entity which finds only good and not evil in everything, we said that no such entity exists, for we don't find such a phenomenon, seeing only good, in the source from which the word stemmed, that is al-Haq. We find him abhorring and loving, and the evil is that which is abhorred, and the good is that which is loved. The word was created in God's image, and the human was created in two images, al-Haq and the word. Hence, no human temperament perceives only one of the two aspects, good and evil. Thus, any human temperament can perceive the difference between the good and the evil, and to know by experience that a thing is evil, and without experience, that is by reason, that it is good. So that his rational perception of the good in a thing diverts him from seeing its evilness. This is conceivable. However, the removal of evilness from the word, that is from being, is inconceivable. God's mercy applies to both the good and the evil. With respect to itself, the evil is good, and vice versa. Regarding a certain human temperament, a good thing may be evil from a certain standpoint, and vice versa. So viewed from such a height, what we call good and evil, or even in the religious matter, like obedience and disobedience, is just two aspects of the same thing. In Ibn Arabi's viewpoint, that is the tajalli, and the tajalli is solely the divine will. Everything that occurs in the whole cosmos, any entity or phenomenon without even a single exception, is nothing but the derivation of the divine will. In this sense, there is no difference between good and evil as we generally understand it. There is only absolute goodness in terms of the divine will. However, this kind of standpoint is completely different when viewed from the perspective of the Sharia, or divine law, which prohibits this and commands that. Here we firmly exercise the distinction between evil and good, so that we blame someone who does something bad because his action is against the Sharia. It is important to note that although his certain action is against the Sharia, according to Ibn Arabi, it is not against the divine will. Why? Because it is impossible for anything, no matter how small it is, not to be included in the divine will. So here God is not incapable of obliterating what is called evil from the word, but he alone approves or blesses the existence of what we call in our relative perspective evil. In this sense, we can understand that something evil is not evil in terms of the divine will, for the rigid dichotomy of good and evil is attached to our relative perception, which is also maintained by the Sharia. Ibn Arabi explains, every decree which is carried out now in the whole cosmos, it as anything that actually occurs in the world as a concrete phenomenon, is a decree of God, even if it violates the particular kind of decree which has been established under the name of divine law. For in reality, only when a decree is truly God's decree is it actually carried out. Everything that occurs in the world occurs solely in accordance with what is decreed by the will of God, not in accordance with the decree of an established divine law. Although, to be sure, the very establishment of the divine law is itself due to the divine will. Besides, precisely because it is willed by God, the establishment of the divine law is actualized. However, divine will in this case concerns only the establishment of the law. It doesn't concern the practice of what is enjoined by the law. Thus, the will has a supreme authority, and this is why Abu Talib al-Makki regarded it as the throne of the divine essence, because the will demands for itself that the decrees should be carried out. Such being the case, nothing occurs in this cosmos apart from the will, nor is anything removed from the sphere of being except by the will. And whenever the divine command is violated in this cosmos by what is called disobedience or sin, it is the matter of the mediate command, not the existentiating command. Nobody, whatever he may do, can ever act against God insofar as the command of the will, as the existentiating command, is concerned. Disobedience occurs only in regard to the mediate command. God's will is only concerned with the realization of a thing, not in the specific case, like who does what. Thus, regarding the human act, the divine will is only concerned with the realization of a certain act. Undeniably, all acts occur necessarily through individual persons. Therefore, each person becomes an individual who must be responsible, so that he is burdened with moral responsibilities in the Sharia system. And it is precisely through such an individual mediation that human acts can be considered good or evil. However, we cannot fully maintain such a rigid dichotomy between good and evil, since it is the divine mercy that disperses everything. In other words, in this sense, evil is the negative condition of a thing, naturally incapable of receiving mercy or existence in a perfect form. So evil is in itself pure non-existence. Basically, the whole cosmos is purely good. Evil is just a thing that comes later. It's just an accident. Evil in itself has no existence. It exists based on our view, not based on its own being. We should keep in mind that God's mercy covers everything, even evil or sin and disaster. That trials from God, which we think painful or make us suffer, are actually good for us. Just because we tend to dislike it, we think it as something not good. The trials that appears to be God's wrath may appear to be something contrary to the mercy, while in fact it is not. God's mercy also covers His wrath. Instead, God bestows His mercy through severe and torturous trials in this world to fulfill a higher purpose of goodness. For example, in order for a person to be freed from the torment of hell in the hereafter. In God's mercy, there is no evil at all, even if we regard it as evil. Quote, all creatures are destined ultimately to reach happiness in spite of the difference in kind that exists amongst them. God Himself expresses this fact when He states that His mercy covers everything and that mercy precedes His divine wrath. Precede means to get ahead of something. Thus, as soon as a particular person who has already been given a negative judgment by that which essentially comes afterwards, it as wrath, overtakes that which goes ahead of mercy, the latter pronounces a new judgment upon him, so that mercy gets hold of him. Such a miraculous thing can actually occur because there is absolutely nothing that can ever forestall mercy. This is what is meant by the dictum, God's mercy precedes His wrath. Because of the decisive influence mercy exercises upon whatever reaches it, for it stands at the ultimate goal awaiting everything, and everything is running towards the goal. Everything inevitably attains to the ultimate goal, so everything inevitably obtains mercy and leaves wrath. In the Quran it is stated, whatever good befalls thee, it is from God, and whatever evil befalls thee, it is from thyself. Thus, all God's gifts are good without exception. In other words, whatever comes from God is pure goodness. This is the meaning of God's mercy precedes His wrath, and God's mercy encompasses everything, even things considered to be harm or disadvantage. So disadvantage is not disadvantageous, but merciful. It is mercy. We can say that sin is a form of divine mercy, although sin makes the sinner punished, which is certainly also encompassed by mercy itself. In addition, the existence of sin itself must be maintained to say that, besides the fact that it is evil from the Sharia perspective, and it must exist to preserve the existence of the good. Evil must inexorably exist to maintain its opposite, it as good, since without the latter we cannot appreciate the value of goodness at all. Committing sin is an unavoidable necessity because besides we are not profit-free from sin, God must realize His attributes or names, such as the retaliator, the humiliator, and thus then He realizes or manifests His names such as the acceptor of repentance, the most forgiving, or the all-forgiving, so that His servant comes back to Him who is the only one. Quote, everything which is remembered by mercy is happy and blessed, but there is nothing that has not been remembered by mercy, and mercy's remembering things is exactly the same as its bringing them into existence. Thus everything existent is affected by mercy. Oh my friend, don't lose sight of what I have taught you under the influence of your vision of the people of misery and your belief in the torments of the hereafter, which are never to be slackened once men are put into them. Know before everything else that mercy is primarily exercised in bringing everything into existence, so that even the torments of hell themselves have been brought into existence by mercy that has been directed towards them. The distinction between good and evil arises from human perspective. One perceives something as good because it accords with his interest or inclination, and vice versa considers something bad because it doesn't accord with his interest. As a matter of fact, this issue, according to Ibn Arabi, is the same as the wind, which is a helper at one time, but can also be a destroyer at another time. The matter is only one, yet the impact is different. It can light a fire, but can also put out a fire. It is good, but also not good. Quote, In the plane of wujud, where it is split into various relations opposed to each other, God describes himself in a famous hadith as having solicitude for his servants. The very first thing which Al-Haq breathed out by its breath of mercy was lordship, and this was actualized by the bringing into existence of the word, because the word was what was essentially required by lordship and all divine names. From this point of view, it is evident that mercy covers everything. I'll see you next time.